My name is Dana Nahai. Most of you know me. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I've been in practice for almost 20 years now, and I have been answering questions from patients, family members, friends, neighbors, strangers on the playground for at least that long. So today I'm going to begin the first of a series of very casual Q&A of answering questions that have been queried to me from the internet. And the first one comes from one of my oldest friends. She lives in Maui. She's a health-loving mama that I studied human metabolism with more than 20 years ago. And she writes asking me organic versus non-organic. Particularly, she has a child with autism, and she's wondering if there is a difference between the two and if one is better than the other. She has some concerns because her child's father has done reading on the internet and says that based on what he's read, it doesn't really matter to spend the extra money on the organic produce or the non-GMO foods. So, first and foremost, when it comes to nutrition research, particularly with what you can find on the internet, you will find what you're looking for. Food is one of the most polarizing topics in our society, and nutrition research is shadowy at best, depending on who's funding the research, the sample size of the study, and if it's being done on humans or if it's being conducted in a petri dish in the laboratory, which most of it is. And so how well do those lab results actually translate into human metabolism is a huge variable to take into place. So when it comes to my approach to nutrition research and to food philosophy, I say rational and reasonable is best. First and foremost, always pay attention to how foods make you feel. And second of all, make sure that you're always using your head. So the question of organic versus non-organic, including the idea of GMO versus non-GMO. Let's first begin by breaking down the difference between the two. Organically grown food in the United States carries a USDA organic label. This ensures that the pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides that are being used to grow that food are derived from chemicals that are found in nature. They concentrate those chemicals, they apply them, and they help to prevent bugs and diseases from attacking the plant. The plant is grown from a non-genetically modified seed. So every time you see a USDA organic label, you also know that that means non-GMO. Conventionally grown produce is produce that may come from a genetically modified seed, or it may come from a non-GMO seed. You don't know because they don't have to say. Genetically modified seeds are typically genetically modified so that on a cellular level, those plants are grown to be able to prevent disease and fight off pests. In conventional produce, they use a huge grab bag of agrochemicals that are chemically derived in a laboratory and produced in a factory and applied in concentration to produce to prevent the attack of pesticides, pests, funguses, and diseases. When it comes to nutrition, we'll talk about that another time, if organic versus conventional if one is better than the other when it comes to nutrient concentration. But as far as the question of what should I be feeding my autistic child and what should I be feeding my child in general, let's address that. We'll stick to addressing that today. Conventionally grown produce is grown, as I said, from a wide variety of agrochemicals. A large majority of agrochemicals are known to be endocrine disruptors. And it's endocrine disruptors that can cause or exacerbate behavioral or developmental issues. That research is there, it's strong, and I would say in the example of a child with autism, you would want to make sure that you are buying as much organic produce as possible. As far as non-GMO goes, maybe. The research is not out there for that one, as far as I can tell. But the good news is that when you're buying organic produce to cut down on those endocrine disruptors and neurotoxins, you're also getting a non-genetically modified organism. That said, you always just want to stick with what you can do. Because first and foremost, whether you're talking about a child with autism or a child that's developing without a developmental or behavioral issue, is that you want them eating a lot of produce. I want them eating a lot of produce. I want you eating a lot more produce than you're already eating. So if buying organic is prohibitively expensive, then you need to be buying the conventional, okay? Because produce has a very high concentration of plant chemicals that our bodies need to promote health and prevent disease. Additionally to that, produce also has our highest concentration of enzymes, live active enzymes that we consume that help us to digest our foods. So going back to my hippy dippy days, you're talking about living food. Well, the idea of living food is really that your food has been plucked from the ground and it's still alive. And the reason we want that food still alive is that it has those live living enzymes in them that help to digest the foods that you're eating. So in the case of my kids, if they get their hands on some junky snack that I wouldn't want them eating otherwise, I always tell them, make sure that you're having an apple with that, make sure you're having some carrot sticks or celery with that or something, because you want to have the living enzymes from the produce to help with the digestion of the junky snack food. So when you're talking, okay, so let's go back to what our priority is here. Number one, produce. Lots of it. Number two, organic. Number three, if you can't afford organic or it's not available to you, go with the conventional. Use some of that fruit and vegetable spray. Wash as much of that topical application as you can off, knowing that some of that is going to get under the skin, especially in soft skin fruits and vegetables like grapes, berries, stone fruits that are grown on trees where we eat the skin, but the skin is very thin. So when the pesticide is directly applied to it, some of that pesticide is going to get underneath the skin and you just can't avoid it. And even with all that fruit fit spray vegetable wash in the world. But when you're buying the organic, you don't have to worry about it as much. Now, honestly, this summer, I live in Georgia. I didn't really get great peaches around here. But the peaches that were great, they were conventional. So I just fruit sprayed the heck out of those things and enjoyed them because they tasted great. Now, I don't eat those all year round. So I'm not going to worry about my chemical exposure to the pesticides as much. And let me tell you, it was totally worth the month's worth of delicious peaches that I did have to eat the fresh ones from Georgia that were conventionally grown versus the nasty mealy ones that are trucked from all the way across the country that are organic. Okay, so that's where you have to play with it. However, in terms of a child with a developmental issue like autism, you do want to reduce as much of that pesticide exposure as possible, because what you're looking at is the accumulation of those pesticides over the course of the lifetime. So if you're eating as much produce as I want you eating, if your child is eating as much produce as I want them eating, independent of if they have autism or if they're developing on a standard curve, over time, the endocrine disruptor exposure that you have from eating loads and loads of conventional produce will add up. And so reduce, reduce, reduce. Remember, the poison is in the dose. So don't stress the conventional produce that much, but just keep in mind every time that you go to the grocery store, the supermarket, or the farmer's market, that you're going to try to buy as much produce that's available, organic produce that's available to you that week. And look, you're going to do the best you can every day. And when it comes to kids, that's the thing that's going to be best for them in the end. So I hope that answers your questions. Please let me know if it was confusing or if you have any more, and I will be back. Have a great day. Bye.